Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So considering the NHL Draft Combine just wrapped up over in Buffalo, and we got some pretty interesting tidbits on certain teams being interested in certain players, especially at 4th overall. I probably put that on the thumbnail. I thought it'd be fitting for me to give my updated mock draft 7.0. I've now done 7 of these things for the 2025 draft. So yeah, we're going to dive into this again with this style of mock draft. This is who I think that they're going to pick, not who I personally would pick. A couple weeks ago, I did a group mock draft. Feel free to go watch that, where me, Grav, Marcus, and Zach, we played the role of the general manager. This is me based on what these teams have done in the past in terms of what their general managers have drafted, size, skill, speed, what do they prioritize, as well as what their prospect pool, young core kind of needs. That's what this is going to be. I'm taking my biases out of this, and I'm just going to try to predict who goes where. Here's the updated draft order. We got 1 through 30 locked up now that we're at the Stanley Cup final. The Calgary Flames and Philadelphia Flyers fans kind of got hosed, considering they had Edmonton and Florida's picks, which were going to be like in the early 20s. But yeah, that's the full order. Based on this, I'm not saying who's going to win the Stanley Cup final. It just went based on the Tankathon order. So yeah, let's get into it. And at first overall, I'm kidding. Matthew Schaefer, of course. It's all but a foregone conclusion at this point that Matthew Schaefer is going to be the pick for my New York Islanders. He is viewed by most, probably 80 to 90% of people, as the best player in this draft. Even though they have Noah Dobson already, Matthew Schaefer has a much higher ceiling than a Noah Dobson. And in terms of prospects, not saying that Misa's on the same level as these guys. He's obviously far better, but they do have Yzerman and Ritchie. I think you'll lock up Matthew Schaefer, who has all the makings, especially given his elite skating, to be your franchise number one defenseman. And the New York Islanders have not had that in so goddamn long. I don't think that they've had a true franchise defenseman as long as I've been alive, for the most part, when looking at that. So you lock that up. You don't worry about him being from Ontario. When he played this season, he was the best player on the ice in basically every single game. And again, this guy's only 2 weeks away from being a 2026 draft eligible guy. He's so young, yet he's so damn good. I know the sample size was small, but go Matthew Schaefer, and I fully expect them to go Matthew Schaefer. Like 2 to 3 weeks ago, I would have said 80% likelihood. I'm at like 90, 95 at this point. So yeah, Matthew Schaefer is the pick for the New York Islanders. It's 2nd overall. Also pretty obvious, Michael Misa. I think San Jose should not really galaxy brain this. They already have a pretty strong prospect pool, so I wouldn't even entertain a trade down here to get, a late first-round pick and an okay prospect. Your prospect pool is beyond loaded. Lock up Michael Misa, although you would have loved to have some kind of great right-handed defenseman here to take at 2nd overall, or just a defenseman in general. No one compares to Michael Misa, and he is the best forward in this draft. They are going to be beyond loaded. Celebrini, Smith, Eklund, Musty, Chernyshov. It's going to be gross. They might have to kick Will Smith out to wing, but yeah, you worry about that later. Misa was fantastic this season, 62 goals, 134 points, and San Jose is just off and running when looking at this. He's going to be one of the best second-line centers in the entire NHL in a couple of years, playing behind Matt and Celebrini, and he has chemistry with another prospect, Chernyshov, who had 55 points in 23 games this year in the OHL. Absolutely ridiculous. Lock up Michael Misa. Don't worry about it. Quality over quantity, and just be set for the future. At 3rd overall, this is when the draft really starts. I'm going to go with Anton Frundell. When looking at it, much more of a beefier big guy than a Connor Bedard, who's only 5'10"-ish. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. Played against grown men this season and dominated at times. 25 points in 29 games. I said at times the consistency, the compete level needs to be a little bit higher, but at the end of the day, I think that a lot of the reporting is suggesting more so Frundell to Chicago. He's not my 3rd best prospect in this draft, but I think at this point it's looking like Frundell, and it would be a pretty damn good pick. Similarly to Misa, let him be your 2nd-line center and be a 30-30 kind of guy going forward. At 4th overall, this is when things really start to get shocking. Brady Martin. This is solely based on kind of the Cam Robinson tweet from this weekend when he said that word around the campfire is that Utah really likes Brady Martin. Would not be shocking to see him go at 4th. I understand from like a positional stylistic fit. You have Logan Cooley as your number 1 center, and you get Brady Martin, who is the smash mouth Sam Bennett type. He said that he looks up to Sam Bennett and Tom Wilson and Matthew Nyes, quite the crew. I wouldn't take him here, but yeah, I definitely understand why Utah sees a Sam Bennett and sees, we can get our own Sam Bennett. I wouldn't take that at 4th overall, but it's definitely interesting, because he did not exactly have the best offensive season. Only 72 points in 57 games this year. Still a very good prospect. it would be a little bit of a reach, though. At 5th overall, James Higgins to the Nashville Predators. I think Barry Trotz would snag Higgins. When looking at him, amazing draft year, -1. Still good this year as well, point per game at the college level. You wanted a little bit more, but he should not be falling out of your top 7, top 8. I think that's a little bit reactionary. He is still just such a dynamic playmaker and passer. And for Nashville, he could hopefully become their number 1 franchise center going forward as they kind of start entering this retool rebuild. At 6th overall, I have Danny Briere, the French Canadian, taking another French Canadian and Caleb Desnoyers. I think that they would also be inclined to take a center, considering they have Matvei Michkov over on the wing, and there's the defensemen aren't quite on the same level as a Desnoyers. In my opinion, this guy's draft stock has been rising a lot, considering the playoffs that he had. The QMJHL wasn't that great in the Memorial Cup, but dominated the QMJHL playoffs, had 80 points in 54 games, and is very good defensively. I think that's also a decent factor in this. Michkov doesn't play a lot of defense. Get him that number 1 center that is more of a two-way guy and still has a lot of offense. He is still pretty damn prolific, and I think he can be a 65 to 70 point, maybe even 75, maybe even point per game playing with Michkov. But I think at worst case, you're going to get a very smart two-way second line center. At 7th overall, Boston probably would like to go center, but I have them going with Porter Martone. Similarly to James Higgins, I feel like his stock is falling, but he still is one of the most skilled and has one of the highest ceilings in this draft, where I would take him for Boston over like a Jake O'Brien or the next closest center, just because, again, 6'3", 200-pound guy. This guy just looks like a Boston Bruin, if that makes sense. So I could definitely see him go 98 points in 57 games this year. In the OHL, at 8th overall, no shocker here. I think I've had him in the last 4 or 5 mock drafts here. Radim Merca to the Seattle Kraken. He plays for the Seattle Thunderbirds right now. I'm sure they've seen him a lot. 6'6", right-handed defenseman, a rare breed, big righty, and had 35 points in 43 games this year. In the WHL, Seattle definitely needs to go defense. If they were at 5th or 6th overall, I'd understand going forward over a Mertka or one of the defensemen. But here, considering the fact that they have like all young forwards for the most part, not much defensively outside of like Riker Evans, you go with Mertka and you look to the future in terms of your defense. At 9th overall, this is where I have Jake O'Brien going. You might have to eventually kick him out to the wing, considering you have Tage Thompson and Josh Norris, and you just drafted Constantinius. But yeah, Jake O'Brien, I think at this point, is the best player available at 9th overall. They would have loved to got Radim Merca. They need right-handed defensemen bad. But yeah, O'Brien this year, and especially in the back half of the year, has solidified himself as a top 12 prospect. 98 points in 66 games after winning the OHL Rookie of the Year. Can definitely be an effective top sixer for the Buffalo Sabres going forward. 6'2", only 175 pounds. Needs to put on some weight, but pretty elite patience, vision, and IQ, where I think that he could be a second-line center if Josh Norris does not exactly pan out injury-wise. 10th overall, similar thought process here. I have Victor Eklund going to the Anaheim Ducks. I think at this point he is probably the best, or at least the safest prospect remaining, considering what he did last year alongside Frundell, or this year, 31 points in 42 games in the Swedish second tier. He is a little bit undersized, but he plays very physical. He's very tenacious, especially on the boards, so I don't worry about him only being 5'10". I think he's going to be a big Swiss Army knife kind of top 6 forward for this Anaheim Ducks team. And yeah, I just think that he's probably the best player available. So go for him if you're the Anaheim Ducks, and they like to take their Swedish European players. At 11th overall, the Pittsburgh Penguins. I have them taking Roger McQueen. This is something that popped up as a result of the draft combine. I don't like to read too much into what teams are taking what prospects to dinner, but they did take Roger McQueen to dinner, and he said it was a remarkable experience. The back injury, we got some more clarity on that. Apparently, it was just a fracture, like a one-time thing, nothing to be too worried about. So if you're Pittsburgh, you just take him here. You go for a swing, like a big home run swing. Considering the fact that they're entering their rebuild, you don't play it safe and draft like a Braden Coots or something. Nothing against Braden Coots. I still have him going decently high. But you take a swing on a Roger McQueen, and if it works out, great. If it doesn't, he's probably not going to be a top 2 foundational piece in the next 2 seasons, considering they're probably going to be picking top 5. Take a swing on Roger McQueen, because when this guy was healthy, he was damn dominant. If he played this full season healthy, there's a decent world where he's no doubt top 5 in a lot of people's books. So Pittsburgh maybe gets a steal in Roger McQueen. At 12th overall, Kashawn Atchison to the New York Rangers. Again, with this pick, it might end up going to Pittsburgh, considering the JT Miller trade and the Marcus Pettersson deal. They could either draft this year and then send an unprotected first-round pick to Pittsburgh, or give it to them this year. I think that they probably are going to give it to them, but I'm going off this assumption that it is the New York Rangers, and I think Kashawn Atchison makes a lot of sense when looking at what this guy brings in terms of just tenacity, similarly to a Victor Eklund. He lays out the body completely and has a pretty decent shot, 26 goals, and Rangers definitely need more so of a defenseman prospect compared to forward. They really really have nothing in terms of young defensemen at this point. Keandre Miller's 25 years old. Braden Schneider's okay, but nothing special. Zach Jones didn't really pan out. So yeah, you go with the defenseman, even though they went with EJ Emery last year. I'm not that high on EJ Emery, especially offensively at 1 point this year for North Dakota, and he's definitely just going to be more so of a lockdown defenseman. Kashawn Atchison can be a legit impact guy, and I think he can be NHL ready relatively soon, considering at least physically he could be ready for the NHL tomorrow. I think he's probably going to be ready in 2 seasons for the New York Rangers. At 13th overall, I have the Detroit Red Wings selecting Jackson Smith, kind of completing their top 4 defense core, a future partner of ASP. I think would make a lot of sense. He has a lot of tools. If he pans out, he could really hit. And for Detroit, the last 3 years, they have selected with their first pick in the draft a forward. So if they were higher up, you maybe go forward and take a swing on a guy. But I think Jackson Smith is still a decent swing considering his size and skill. And I like the idea of him playing with ASP down the line. Next up at 14th overall, Justin Carbonneau to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yeah, he's just a very good goal-scoring winger. I think alongside an Adam Fantilli, Kent Johnson, or Sean Monahan, he can be very effective. He's pretty physical. Just a very good player for Columbus to add to their already very impressive young forward core. Now at 15th overall, the Vancouver Canucks, I have them selecting Carter Bear. I know that they might be a little bit more inclined to take a center, but I think Bear is just such an impressive prospect. And now that we know that he's already recovered from his Achilles injury, I think you take him here, because if he played out that full season and had no injuries, we'd be talking about this guy in the same breath of an Eklund, of a Jake O'Brien. So although maybe not the best fit in terms of being a winger, I think you go with Carter Bear. So good this season. 40 goals, 42 assists, 82 points in 56 games. A very twitchy player, and I think he's going to end up being a decent steal for the Vancouver Canucks. At 16th overall and 17th overall, the Montreal Canadiens. I think that they try to hit a home run, and then they kind of have a safe pick. In terms of that safer pick, I think Braden Coots makes sense as a future third-line center, maybe even a second-line center for the Montreal Canadiens. Very good two-way guy. I kind of view him as like a Walmart Constellinius, if that makes sense. I was very high on Consolinius, so that's not really a disrespect to Coots. But yeah, 63 points, 60 games, very impressive at U18s, 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 points. I think you go with Braden Coots. And then for the other pick, Lyndon Lakovic. What this guy showed this season on a bad Moose Jaw Warriors team with 27 goals, 31 assists, 58 points in 47 games. 6'4", 195 pounds. If he hits, he's really going to hit. He has that skill. So I think Montreal could potentially get an impact top 6 forward going forward in Lyndon Lakovic. 18th overall, I've mocked this guy a lot to Calgary, Benjamin Kindle. He plays right now for the Calgary Hitmen. They need high-end offensive guys. They need to take swings because they're probably not going to stink enough to be a bottom 10 team or a bottom 5 team and get a true franchise piece. Benjamin Kindle, 99 points, 65 games. He was an offensive difference maker. He is 5'10", but he is a pretty damn good skater, so I don't think that he's going to get completely bullied out there in terms of undersized guys. So yeah, Benjamin Kindle, decently high offensive upside. Take him there. 19th overall, Sasha Boymedian. When looking at him, he has definitely been rising, considering that U18's performance where he set the all-time points record in a tournament. And for the St. Louis Blues, you went with Adam Juracek last year. He's not having that good of a... He didn't have that good of a draft. You were +1. And I think that you're set for the most part forward-wise, considering you got guys like Dvorsky, Snuggerud, and already have Dylan Holloway, Kyrou, and Thomas aren't that old. So I think you go defense here. Boymedian is a left-handed defenseman. You put the next decade or so Boymedian and Broberg between the years of 2027 to 2037 makes a lot of sense in the world. Boymedian is a little bit underrated before that tournament because at Boston University he was like the number 3 defenseman because he had to play with Cole Hudson and Tom Willander. But yeah, a very solid prospect in Boymedian. Columbus Blue Jackets at 20th overall. This pick was traded to them in the David Juracek trade from Minnesota, and I have them also taking a right-handed defenseman in Logan Hensler. When looking at Columbus, they badly need right-handed defensemen going forward, and although Logan Hensler did not exactly live up to expectations in his freshman year at Wisconsin, still think he can be a solid second-pair guy that gives you 20, 21 minutes a night. So for Columbus, get a damn good right-handed defenseman. At 21st overall, we're going to start ripping through it. I got Malcolm Spence to the Ottawa Senators. High floor, high motor, kind of middle 6 forward. And if you're Ottawa, if you're selecting this pick and you're not going to have your pick the following year, you better get an NHLer out of this pick. So I think Malcolm Spence definitely is going to have a 10 to 12 year career, kind of just as a 40-ish point, kind of middle 6er. And Ottawa definitely needs some beef to their forward core. At 22nd overall, Philadelphia, I have them selecting Blake Fiddler. They have a lot of young offensive defensemen, guys like Jamie Drysdale and Cam York. So they get a 6'4" tank in Blake Fiddler, who defends the rush so well. Did have 33 points this year in the WHL, not some complete offensive black hole, and has a July birthday, so he's one of the youngest guys in this draft in terms of the first round guys, and he can be a solid second pair guy going forward for Philadelphia after taking that center at your first selection. 23rd overall, Cole Reshny to the Nashville Predators, another kind of high upside offensive playmaker, definitely more so of a passer than a scorer. 92 points in 62 games this year in the WHL. You get him, you get Hagens, and you definitely add some offensive flair for your young core. Going forward, 24th overall, the Los Angeles Kings. Colin Potter might be the best skater in this entire draft. For the LA Kings, I think you're probably looking at a forward, even though you did take Greentree last year, considering you barely even play your young defenseman. You have Carter George in net. So Colin Potter makes all the sense in the world. 22 points in 35 games this year at Arizona State. Very impressive. And he balled out at U18s. Probably was Team USA's best player. You get a pretty good pick. And my boy Grav absolutely loves Colin Potter. I think he has him within like his top 12 or something like that. But yeah, Colin Potter to the Kings. At 25th overall, Jack Nesbitt to the Chicago Blackhawks. This is from the Jake McCabe trade all the way back. And yeah, they get another big boy to add to their forward core. 6'4". He is a guy that's kind of popped up and rose of late, but it makes sense considering the size and skill that he possesses. 26th overall, the Nashville Predators. This is from the Hurdle and then the Askarov trade. This pick's been traded around a decent amount. I have them selecting Cam Reed. They went with forwards for their first two selections. Get Cam Reed, who's viewed as a solid offensive defenseman that can be a second pair, second PP kind of guy going forward. So a nice pickup by Nashville. Skates pretty well, 54 points in 67 games in the OHL. At 27th overall, the Washington Capitals. I have them selecting Henry Brustevich. When you look at their prospect pool, especially the prospect pool, it's a lot of forwards, good forwards. So I think they would more opt defensively here, although they do have Cole Hudson in the prospect pool. Henry Brustevich is a righty, so I think that would make a lot of sense for the Washington Capitals. And yeah, 42 points in 67 games on the London Knights, who's basically like their number 3 defenseman because they had Dickinson and Bonk, but still showed out a decent amount. And I think Brustevich makes sense fit-wise for the Washington Capitals. At 28th overall, I had him here last time for the Winnipeg Jets. I have Bill Zonin, Canadian guy, so Winnipeg's probably going to select a Canadian considering they've been spurned before by Americans. And yeah, 6'2", very fast, impact middle sixer going forward, and I think he can have a long and good career in Winnipeg. 29th overall, the Carolina Hurricanes, Milton Gastrin. I've mocked him here a lot of times. 6'2", two-way, high IQ guy. He just seems like a Rod Brindamore player. He was point per game this year in the Swedish juniors and was pretty solid at the U18s. Just makes sense as a potential second-line center down the line once they finally move off Jesperi Kotkaniemi. At 30th overall, the San Jose Sharks from the Granlund trade. I have them going for a swing and selecting Ivan Ryabkin. They would have loved to get Henry Brustevich considering their lack of right-handed defensemen. But yeah, I say swing on Ryabkin. When looking at him coming into this season, he was viewed as a top 6 or 7 overall prospect, considering just how good he was in Russian juniors. He was basically like just a slight tier down from Michkov and Demidov's point totals, point per game totals. And yeah, after getting healthy scratch to start the season in the MHL, KHL, came over to America, had 18 goals, 31 points in 27 games at the USHL level. He needs a higher motor. He needs to kind of keep his emotions in check. But if you can coach him up, you could have a serious steal here. And again, if you're San Jose and your forward core is already so loaded and you don't really have any holes in your prospect pool outside of right-handed defense, why not take a swing on a guy like Ivan Ryabkin at this point? 31st overall, Cameron Schmidt going to the Calgary Flames. It's from the Kachuk trade, by the way. But yeah, sticking in the same thing with their first pick, I think you go for high upside. Cameron Schmidt, he's a little bit undersized, but he has a shit ton of offensive skill. 40 goals this season and 78 points in the WHL. If he translates to the NHL level, I think he's going to be a very high impact and especially a power play wizard. So swing for the fences, and especially Calgary, similar to Winnipeg, take a Canadian. And then lastly, to finish off this mock draft, I have Will Horcroft going to the Philadelphia Flyers. They snag another center, 6'4", was pretty damn good at Michigan this season. It was a small sample size, but 10 points in 18 games in your draft year. He has a lot of tools, and if you put them together, he could be a damn good NHLer. Might take a little bit of a time to develop, but yeah, potential stud second-line center for the Philadelphia Flyers. And that is the full mock draft. Here it is in all its glory. Here's the full list. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be seeing in the next one. I'll do my mock draft probably 2 days before. I'll make one version where the Rangers don't give up the pick and one where they do or something. That's going to suck. Damn it. But yeah, let me know in the comments. What do you think? I'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.